We're going to begin now with the virtual entrepreneurs panel hosted by the CCD Business Administration Program. I'm very excited. This is our first time doing this virtually. Usually I would do it in class. And so I want to introduce everyone to our panel. First off, we have Karen K. Wilson, who is the business owner of K's Lingerie and Boutique. We also have Marion Boston, the president and CEO of Creative Solutions. And then hailing from the West Coast, can I dare say Silicon Valley or close to it? Or would that be a misstatement? Eddie Lynn from Nexus Edge.
I was on mute, sorry. I think it would be a slight, I wouldn't say Silicon Valley so much because we're based in LA, although I certainly spend enough time there. But I don't think we would really identify with Silicon Valley as much as Southern California.
Okay, SoCal, hailing from SoCal.
Yeah.
Eddie Lynn and Nexus Edge, where he's at right now. Jamal Bowen, representing his company, Empowering Entrepreneurs. And Nicole Wilson, our fantastic hair expert with her business, Sheer Fantasy Hair Salon. So welcome, all you wonderful entrepreneurs. I want to begin by just asking a few questions and you guys can chime in. So for each one of you, I obviously you volunteered to be here, but I also wanted to kind of get a diverse mix of different businesses and concepts, as well as different age groups, because I think that's kind of important as well when you're looking at having a business in the longevity and startup stage versus mature stage. So when did you guys start your businesses? We'll go by the order of the slide deck. So, Kay.
Oh, hi there. I actually started my business many moons ago, exactly 22 years ago. It started out as a hobby, actually. It was something fun to do, and with that, over time and period, I opened my first location in 1998. And it actually took off quite well for at least a year or two, only because I was in a car accident and injured my back. So I really couldn't do the things I really wanted to do during that time period. But then 22 years later, after all the kids are grown up, and that's still been my baby to still do it, I redeveloped the whole deal, my whole idea of having a boutique, specializing in plus sizes as well as small, medium, and large. And so I reopened Grand.
I think we lost her voice.
My store of this year, September 21st, 2020.
All right. Wonderful. All right. And Marion Boston.
Hi. We Creative Solutions I started out actually in 2015. My official start is 2017, which is March of 2017. So that's kind of the time frame that you're looking at right now.
All right. Next up, Eddie.
Yes. I started officially in 2016, and usually people are solving a problem that they've encountered themselves. So I had a pretty long corporate career prior to this. Well, I felt like it felt long. And then it was Along the way, I felt like a lot of the education that I've had, pretty much all of it, didn't actually help me do any of my jobs. So I was like, how do we make sure that everybody in this world is learning something that actually helps them get these jobs, that there's no bias in hiring and recruiting and all these problems you see today, because now you see that like there's $1 trillion of student loans, people can't pay them back. There are employers looking to hire, but people can't get those jobs. So those are I felt like I sat within that point where that's the kind of problem that I wanted to dedicate my life towards solving. So that's when I started it. And I can go into more details in our next pass around.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. So I know we're talking about time frame, but I want to know what you do.
Oh, okay. Yes. So what we do, thanks for asking. So we partner with different employers like Google, Shopify, and Citigroup, and we take what they would hire for or their learning materials, and we integrate those into classrooms at scale. So that way students everywhere can get the benefits and learning of each one. For example, with Citigroup, everyone knows Citibank as an actual I go in and deposit checks. A lot of people, particularly students, don't know they have positions that pay very well, like in venture capital. They have positions in risk management, things like that. So what we've done with Citi is we take their learning materials about actually mortgage-backed securities, basic stocks, bonds, um, those kinds of things that are very, very learnable, actually. And those are implemented within Canvas or any learning management system. And the reason why that's important is because that way every teacher all over the world can have immediate access to content from Citi. And if students pass the Citi exams, they get routed into the Citi internship and full-time programs right away. So now it doesn't matter where you are, who your teacher is, where you go to school, Citi will evaluate purely, they'll evaluate you purely based on your skills. And if you can do the job, you'll actually get the job. So we do that with as many employers as possible, but that's the general kind of blueprint.
Yeah, a tech-based company, basically it's cloud-based as well. And everything is run either through your website or it can be tied into uh, any like higher education learning management system. So yes, Mary, you bring up a good point. My apologies, we didn't describe everybody's business.
Yeah.
So if Marion, you want to circle back and describe some of your products and services.
Sure. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just was kind of like, we're starting in the middle instead of the beginning. And so, but one of the, what we do, Creative Solutions, is a print, graphic design. We do printing, graphic design, and marketing. So we produce a lot of marketing materials and different things of that nature. We kind of make sure that we do a lot of branding. So we brand a lot of, we do a lot of logos and different things of that nature. But our one of our main focuses is on grieving families, and so we do a lot with grieving families in regards to preparing obituaries, printing, posters, and all those types of things. And so that's kind of our niche and what we really focus on. But we also do, like I said, a lot of marketing pieces too. So it's kind of basic and something where you can put me in a box right there. So there I am.
Thank you. Kay, what are some of your products and services?
Sure. Mine is my main goal is I specialize in intimate apparel, lingerie. I specialize in plus sizes. I do, of course, have all sizes: small, medium, large, and extra large. I used to have the men's line. I'm not for sure if I'm going to bring that back yet right now, but that's my baby for years. And along with that, I have the gourmet coffee, um, just all the Obama purses, a variety of things that women would enjoy. And that's what I present when people come into the show, to the shop, that you have personal service. And it's just me and you, you know, and having a cup of coffee and looking through the lingerie catalog books, or as well as things that may be on stock that they can take with them right away.
Wonderful.
So, yes.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move down the list. So Jamal Bowen, when did you start and what do you do?
Okay, so my name is Jamal Bowen. I'm actually the first year experience coordinator. So for most of you, you had Miss Marta or Professor Marta. So I'm the first year experience coordinator for that. I also teach business and entrepreneurship with Professor Lynn at the Community College of Denver. And then also I started my business in 2016. I actually started it while I was finishing up my master's in business and organizational management. I was just so big about my community and just wanted to help my community, but throughout, you learn business by doing business. And that's something I always preach. And I know Professor Lynn preaches that as well, is that sometimes it's great to learn all these great words and go through these different books about business, but sometimes it's really through experience. And I really gained a lot of experience on how not to do business with different people, but also the key thing is always make sure you have a contract in place. You can be passionate about your community and passionate about the things going on, but the biggest thing is really making sure you have a contract. And I think that's where I messed up as a young guy, so eager to help my community. I kind of fell out of the cracks, but something about what I do with my business is consulting. So I work with different organizations or different individuals on how to create a business plan, how to do a pitch, or do different things around business. I sit down sometimes one-on-one with individuals, or I'll do maybe a group of teaching or like seminars. And so that's what my business is, but also it's empowering community entrepreneurs. So we can't forget that piece.
Right on. Thank you. And last but not least, Nicole Wilson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole, of course. I'm the owner of Sheer Fantasy Hair Salon, and I actually have been doing hair professionally for 18 years now. And I started as an entrepreneur, back in 2002. And that's something I've always loved to do hair. It's something that was always on my heart, especially kind of getting that inspiration from my grandmother, because she was a hairstylist for 50 years, and so that spirit, just landed on me, and that's what I've been doing ever since. I opened up my own salon in 2016, and I've been there. So that's was a goal of mine, and that was something that God opened the door for me. So 2016, that's when I officially opened Sheer Fantasy Hair Salon. And in my salon, I specialize in different things, extensions. I specialize in natural hair. I specialize coloring, men's cuts, perms, relaxers, all kind of different things. Of course, I do men, women, and children. And also I have retail in my salon as well for your needs as far as your shampoos, your conditioners, things like that. I try to do things that are on the natural side as well. And eventually a line will come out of that. But for right now, that's honestly what I've been doing the last 20-something years. I've just been doing hair and being in my salon and for the past 4 years, and it's just been wonderful. I actually had it was actually officially 4 years, December 6th of this month. So December 6th, 2016 is when I opened up Sheer Fantasy Hair Salon, and so it's been great. I mean, entrepreneurship has its ups and downs, but it's really good. It helps you want to keep yourself accountable. I think that's the best thing that I would say that entrepreneurship has taught me is being accountable for yourself. And, it's funny that, Jamal was saying that as well. Just, when you deal with community and things like that, just making sure you put things in writing. That's definitely a big thing to learn as well. So, but yeah, so that's basically a gist of what I do.
All right. All right. So we're going to dive in here. We'll stick with you, Nicole. How did you first fund your business when you launched your own shop, which was been a dream of yours?
Um, it's funny, to be honest with you, I had no grants. I had no grants. I had no loans. I mean, I had to work hard. Um, that's basically how I funded. I did the funding. Working tireless hours at the salon. You know, Sometimes I'd be at the salon very late at night. But I think if you can help it, you want to do your best to um, not get any loans if you can. If you, I think one of the young ladies said when she had her own savings, I think that's the best thing to have, and that's something that as well that I had to learn as an entrepreneur is to have your savings because when you don't have that, that's not a good thing as well. So basically, I didn't have any grants, I didn't have any loans. I was the officer of that. So I had to work the crazy hours and that's how I was able to go from there. And then also another thing, and I know one of the I can't remember who his name was, but he was talking about capital and just different ways how you can do things to get your business rolling. And so what I end up doing is, especially if you're starting out, what I would suggest is maybe doing something or being in a place that kind of provides a lot of different, a lot of your material. So, for example, what I did, instead of me, having to get a storefront, starting out, what I did is I got a suite and I went under a company called Phoenix Salon Suites. And so a lot of times that really helped out as well because I didn't have to, with me not having, as I said, 2 or 3,000, in my bank account, I was able to get into a place that, that catered to stylists like us to where they took care of having the sinks and they took care of having the dryers and all that stuff. All you had to do was move in. And so maybe that's also something that if I could get the young lady's name again, but maybe that's something that she can do to get into a place that kind of provides, some of your equipment already, just starting out. And that'll be something that could maybe help manifest until you really get in to be able to get a storefront or what have you. I don't know if that's the journey you want to take, but that's just an opportunity as well. I've heard of something called cloud kitchens, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe that's something where she can start off at too. She can get into that, and maybe that will maybe help kind of set a little bit of her capital until she gets her feet wet. But that's honestly what I did. I set out and found a place that wasn't too far from where I was at, so you didn't have to worry about my clients having to drive all the way downtown or somewhere. I got somewhere that's centralized and somewhere that I was able to not have to come up with a whole lot of money for capital. So that was a help for me as well.
Right on. Thank you. So besides bootstrapping, are there any other methods that any of the entrepreneurs on this panel have used to fund their business?
I guess all those stages of, all of that you would think, actually, because you start out with what, credit cards? Like, I don't know what anyone else has, right? Credit cards. And after a lot of hustle, we got angel investment, which for those of you who aren't familiar, that's like someone's personal capital. So That's a pretty standard thing where usually like wealthy individuals they get together with others in something called an angel network, and then they spend hard-earned money they've earned. So I don't know, they could have been a lawyer, or that's very common too. And they just want to invest in early stage companies to benefit from that upside. It's angel investors, like personal people's capital. And then after that, we raise a little bit of venture capital, which is a crazy story involving me just walking into some random person's office in San Francisco because I was feeling it that day. We're happy to go into that as well. And that's a venture capital. So those venture capital is professional investors. They raise money themselves to invest in early stage companies, so that they can benefit from some upside too. And then hopefully we'll do more of that later, but money goes by faster than you think. So I believe, Michelle, it's good that you have savings, but I would recommend also that you narrow your menu, and just really find that audience very quickly and just keep your how much capital you spend up front really, really low, because you're likely going to make some pivots. I'm glad Cloud Kitchens was mentioned because that came from the founder of Uber. So he was able to raise like $400 million literally from like the Saudi Arabian investment fund. And yet they still haven't really showed up on anything, which is really weird because you would think with all that money that I would just be able to go on Cloud Kitchens right now on my phone, especially since he's done it before. But I think they're having some issues. So that's why I would just be really careful. It's like a different concept, but I always advocate for starting like really lean, like 3 menu items. I don't know. There's other ways to do this, but like the P90X type people have a very specific book. I can even show you what it is. Maybe you find that audience through social media or something as well, and you just make a narrow set of items because you know they're going to eat that because they have to if they're going to follow that diet. Keto is actually huge right now too. Huge. So
Yeah.
maybe you just, market yourself as the specialist for great tasting delivered keto stuff that you don't have to make. It's not that expensive to make because I make it now too in lockdown. So anyway, those are just ideas that came to mind to keep you to spend less, and operate really lean as you figure out, more and more what your customers look like.
Just out of curiosity, how much were you able to get from the VC?
At a VC, probably total have raised like $500,000 from it. And I did want to share that story because I think there's this thing where people think about, oh, you have to know the right people, which is true, but it doesn't mean that you have to be born into a particular type of network. Um,
Right.
I crashed some party. I was taught to crash parties as part of business school. It's a long story. Actually, I took a film class in business school, and it was his final paper is to crash a party and write a paper about it. And I crashed Steve Wynn's wedding after party, and he's been assigning this for like 20 years, and they wanted to like, I don't know, he had 10 years, so they couldn't throw him out. Anyway, that was one of the most valuable classes I took. So, what I did was I crashed an event instead of spending $1,500 to get in because I thought that was a ripoff. And who has $1,500 at that early stage? And then so there, that's a crazy story. But then I met like a VC there, a venture capital person there. He's like right about my age actually. So there was we became genuinely good friends. Like I was invited to his wedding. He's got my back and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, hey, here we go, gonna get a beer. We're in San Francisco because, like you said, Silicon Valley, right? I was in San Francisco. I was like, all right, when are we gonna get a beer? What are we gonna do, right? He's like, actually, have you heard of this? Because he's a VC, so he has peers who are also VCs who invest in stuff, and he sees lots of other startups. And then he said, okay, well, um, have you ever looked at this fund? I was like, no. So by typing in Google Maps, and it was only 2 blocks from where I was standing, I was like,
Wow.
I know where I'm going, even though they said this is like poor etiquette. I felt it, right? So I walked over to the elevator. I was like, okay, let's see. I don't know I went to their website, right? So I knew exactly their address. And then I was like, okay, well, let's see. I don't know what floor they're on. Doesn't say. So I'm gonna press all the lucky numbers and all the cultures that I know. And maybe I'll get lucky, right? So I was like, all right, we'll go with the Asian 8. Nope, not working. In Vegas, if I press 7 3 times, I can like make money at the slot machine. Eventually, after pressing random buttons, I got to the right floor, and then I looked through like I looked through the partners because the partners are going to make the investment decisions. And then I scrolled through the things. I was like, so and so there. They're like, no, he's not here. I meant, and I scrolled through it. I was like, oh, Kevin Dick. Oh, what a silly name, Kevin Dick. And that comes back later. So I skip over Kevin Dick's name, talk to Dave. And she calls up. I was like, hey, can I talk to Dave? She's like, yeah. Do you have an appointment? I was like, no. But then she calls Dave anyway. So Dave comes down and then we talk and he's like kind of hesitant. He's like, I don't know. We meet like 3 other times in San Francisco. And then we happen to end up getting into Techstars shortly thereafter. And then everyone at Techstars is required to meet with none other than Kevin Dick of all people. I was like, you're
Wow.
the guy, yeah, you're the guy who skipped over that day on my phone. And he's like, I understand you know Dave already. I was like, yeah. So yeah, they ended up investing after all of that, but it wouldn't have been possible had I not snuck into this event because I didn't feel like, or I didn't have $1,500. I hadn't built a genuinely good friendship with my buddy, and I did not feel like walking into that office randomly that day. So I want to say that it's perfectly possible to not spend any money, especially if you don't have any, to at least raise like venture capital investment. And this story goes on and on and on. But that's an important point on this particular topic I wanted to mention.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that anecdote. I mean, it showed all the elements of entrepreneurship you have to have, right? Risk taking, hustle, communication skills, networking. So I think it really illustrated a lot there. Yes, Miss Marion.
And I'm sorry. The one thing that I really got from Eddie is that that entrepreneur intuition. Sometimes you
Mm,
have to like say, okay, this is really getting, this is really something I believe that this is the right way to go. Sometimes you get, it's not even about this is what I know to do right. It's just like this is what I'm feeling. This is what, you know, so it's risk, of course. Everybody calls it risk, but it's really your intuition. It's really saying it's really something that is like driving you, even though it's wrong. But but it's driving you, you know, everybody's saying, don't do that, don't do that. But it's like, no, I have to do this. The one thing that he talked about credit cards, and of course I did. I used credit cards. I used all of my paychecks, everything that was coming in, paycheck after paycheck. But I also got line of credit too, lines of credit. And so I know, you know, but one thing I really liked what he said was that risk taking, but really that intuition really it really means something when you can trust what's in you, and what's in you will speak to somebody else. And so that's what that's what I got from you. Thanks.
Thank
right
you.
on. All right, let's go to the next topic. Business structures is something that's kind of, I don't know, in some ways, really unfamiliar to newbies because they don't know which way to go. Should I go S Corp? Should I do LLC? What is your take on it? And do you guys have a formal business structure for your companies?
I want to mention that really quick because I'm a big advocate on like not spending any money and early on. So as you can kind of tell, LLC because it's really cheap and not even through like LegalZoom. If you go like myllc.com, you can spend like $100. I bet there's ways to spend even less to get LLC, and it's great because it keeps you protected. That's all you really need. And then at the same time, you don't have to do any complicated tax stuff. Whereas if you raise venture capital, you need to basically have a C corp, more complicated tax structure and all this nonsense. So what we did was, okay, LLC because it's cheap. And then when they're like, yeah, we need to invest in your C Corp, I'm like, yeah, totally. And then you go online the next day and you just like create the C Corp or convert to a C Corp. You're like, yeah, I had this whole time. It's all good, right? So I would, and it's more taxes, right? So I would just not do it until you have to. But who knows? Maybe you keep it as LLC forever. So like go for the cheap. Big fan of go for the cheap.
I like that. Any other anecdotes from some of the other owners?
This is Jamal.
Well,
All
I'm
right.
an LLC. I'm an LLC as well. Kind of some of the reasons what Eddie pretty much broke down for us. But pretty much, I teach intro to business at sometimes. And I'm really big on, doing the research on what corporation or what structure you want. That's the biggest thing. So when I'm teaching it, I tell my students, you have to do your research, but also you need to know your liabilities and you need to know the benefits. And to me, I know we said risk-taking, intuition, but it's which one you want to take. At the end of the day, all structures have risks to it, but which one are you willing to take? And so the LLC, I'm big on LLC. My reasoning is because I'd rather you come after my company than me personally, right? And so that's something I view, Lynn. But at the end of the day, you choose which one is going to fit you or which one you feel is better for you. And so that's the reason why I chose LLC.
Thank you.
And I'm just like Eddie. I did the same exact thing. So I started out as a LLC, and then after a few years, then I converted into the S corp. So that's what I'm at.
Can you explain a little about S Corp since that wasn't covered?
And actually, it's really similar to the C corp. I think it's a little smaller, but no. But it's the tax benefits is what we're looking for. Being able to write off more. being able to, that it's like that kind of stuff. We still have the protection, but you still get to write off a little more. Yeah,
And I
especially
think,
as a. Mhm.
I think you can also write it off against your like personal taxes too. Is I think really helpful to have it. You can write off your personal income off of it. I think that's a really cool advantage to an S corp.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think we lost them.
Yeah, I think I was like, wait a minute.
As S corps, can you also write yourself a salary under those versus an LLC?
Absolutely. You write a salary. So you have all of the benefits of the LLC, but you still get those tax write-offs. I do get a salary now instead of trying to figure out where my money's coming from. Um, and then, and then I just those types of things. So the limitations, but they do have some limitations, but the benefits outweigh the limitations, I believe. And so your credibility, higher credibility in regards to just credit purposes and stuff like that. Yeah, those are the things that were really, my accountant was like, this will benefit you a little more because you'll be able to write off more and you'll be able to actually get a salary and write that off.
Sure. All right. So the next big question, you just saw Michelle do a great job on her business plan earlier. Do you guys think business plans are essential?
Yes.
I definitely want to answer that.
Okay.
This is Cole. I absolutely think that business plans are very essential. And the reason why I say that is a person without vision, they perish. And so I feel like, being an entrepreneur and being somebody that you want to do something, you notice that when you write it down, that you can see it and you can constantly say, okay, I'm going to get to that goal, whether it be a business, whether it be any type of goal that you're doing in life. So I think that you have things planned out, you have things in place. And say if you veer off of it a little bit, it's fine. But as long as you have that vision in front of you, I think for sure business plans are definitely beneficial, and it helps you stay on track. And as I was saying earlier, it helps you stay accountable and just keep you on that track of what you need to do in order to keep your business afloat and what you want to do. I mean, that's something that I did. I mean, to be honest with you, I did a business plan way back when I was in school. and I kept that business plan. Did I use it when I, went on, to get where I'm at now? No, but it was a vision that I had, and then I just continued to add to that, during the years, and it just kept me saying, okay, this is the goal that I want. This is what I want to do. Hey, Lord and behold, it happened. So I was grateful for that. So for sure, I think it's definitely essential to just keep your mind on your goals and what you want to do.
Right on.
That's good.
Kay, I think you were trying to chime in.
Yes. Well, going back to one question before that, I did decide to go with the LLC because it gave me more control of my business and my activities as well. Because before I was doing sole proprietor, but I don't think I probably really understood what that was then, so you just did it because, okay, that's something to do, you didn't know. But now that I actually have a location again and approaching it with the right matter, that's why I decided to go with the LLC on that one. I also didn't have any funds, basically, I had used my own savings, no loans, something I didn't want to do, and something I don't want to do ever. And that's been working great for me as well. And then to come to the main question, yes, I think it is important to have a business plan, especially what really kicked it off when I took that class with you, Lynn, the entrepreneurial class. And that's the very first time I actually had done a business plan. So it highly encouraged me to reopen my retail store by using the plan, because I said, okay, this is what I've been doing. This is what I've always wanted to do, but now I have something I can use as a guide, or if I decide to get a loan, I would know how much I would need and what you need to do to get to that point to make sure you get that loan paid back. But again, I don't want to do the loan thing. So yes, it is definitely important to have a business plan. It gives you structure.
Right on.
So, Lynn, one of the things that business plans are, I think they're very important. The one thing that I love what Nicole said, and I echo it, is that it's a working document. It's not something that's just static and stoic. It's really something that you're working on all the time. It changes and it needs to change, because if you just have a business plan and that's the plan, when you reach the goal, then what do you do?
Yeah.
So you have to keep working on it. It's not something that's just set, and that's the thing about, I know even with my business, it's like when COVID hit, it changed.
Yes.
Completely. And so there were some things that I had. There's sorry. Okay. I don't know what it said. It said something, but this thing. But the thing is that I think the main thing is that you keep it fresh. Keep it fresh and know that it's not supposed to just stay the same. It's actually supposed to change. It's supposed to do that, because if you don't change with your economy, with your people that are that you're targeting, your target audience, and all of those things, they change. And so if you don't change with them, then you will be irrelevant soon. And so it's all about staying fresh and knowing what's going on, knowing your society, knowing your community, knowing what's going on. So I think a business plan is good, but making sure that you understand that it does change is really important also.
Wonderful.
I think
Yeah, I
Marion
agree.
brought up an excellent point. I want to mention is that the plan is undoubtedly going to change. I like to keep them pretty light, especially if you're in an industry that is where you don't know if people are even going to buy your stuff, right? Because those plans will change significantly. But I think he definitely gives you structure and things to think about, like filling in the part about unit economics. You're like, wait a second, is my food costing me more than I can make off of it? Better change that price, or something like that. And then, but undoubtedly it will change because you probably wrote, you get your customers through like knocking on doors. I'm seeing that, which is good to start. And you're going to probably change that over time. It says, maybe you hire someone else to knock on doors. I don't know. Or which is a good way to get started. Or maybe I choose social media, but which ones? And one is working better than the other, so let me cut this one out. Let's just say for some reason I discovered this particular meal sells really well and the other ones don't, so we'll just cut those. Just because there's so many stories of these crazy pivots. Like one of them was from Groupon, where they started as a political activism website, and he was trying to buy pizza for lunch, and then he realized that if he bought a bigger pizza, that he could sell it, make money by splitting the cost of the bigger pizza, and suddenly Groupon was born out of like some political site.
Wow.
Yeah, there's my friend I used to work with actually. He made me really think this is all doable. It's like he decided to build like he said 50 of the dumbest games that you could ever build for like mobile. He was so embarrassed of what they were, he didn't tell me what they were. And then while doing that, he discovered there was something called mobile ad retargeting. I still don't quite understand that today. To a great degree. And he ended up selling to Twitter for $100 million based off of something that was completely different than what he started with. But that business plan at least gets him thinking about, wait, I should, have this as my team, or like this is how much I should be charging for things. And it's like Marion was saying, it's a living document. You can't forget that stuff while he's doing it, but look how much it changed. So I think it's important. But I'm also not the type to really go into all those to super amount of detail just because I know it's going to change. Well, for us at least, because when you don't know if someone's going to buy your stuff or what they're willing to buy, then it will change anyway. So yeah, I'm kind of a mix of both, definitely on the business plan and keeping it on the lighter side if people haven't bought something like that before.
Yeah,
Right
same.
on.
The same for me. Something I always tell my students is definitely keep working on it. Even after this course with Professor Lynn, keep working on your business plan. You're going to critique it, like everyone else has said. You're going to have to change it to meet with the times. Like, who knew COVID was going to happen, right? That made everybody change their whole perspective on how they're going to run their business. And so that's something you have to keep in mind, that things in life are going to happen. You're going to have different pandemics, different events that happen, but you have to be able to change and adapt to those situations. And that's the biggest thing, is really being able to adapt. I'm big on business plans. Professor Lynn and I work closely on business plans together. And we always, when we teach our classes, we teach them so students have opportunities. So we don't just have you write this business plan just to write it and just get a grade, but also we want you to write it and be able to implement it in society. And so that's the biggest thing, that you all are writing these business plans to really change, lives of others and things like that. Because your business, as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to be willing to change other people's lives, but also understand you're a leader at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you're an introvert or extrovert, you're a leader in some type of way, that you have to have community ties to be a business owner, especially small businesses like Miss Marion. She has community ties. Miss Nicole, Miss Kay, Eddie, everybody has some type of ties to someone or something. And so that's what you have to understand. And another thing I'm going to go off of, because I'm really big on, and most people who know me know that I'm a big networker. Like, I am really big on networking. We have an advisory board that Professor Lynn started, and I kind of took over it, just networking with different professionals, business owners, entrepreneurs, and not just building that network, but really reaching out to that network. That's something you have to do, and that's something we're doing. I'm working on some grant opportunities or funding opportunities with DPS, as well as meeting with one of our senators, things like that. You're using those networks, not just saying, oh, I have these networks. Oh, look who I have in my number bar. Are you really tapping into those networks? And I know Professor Lynn has used tons of his networks, or he provided networks in your classroom. Ms. Marion, everyone in here that's on this panel has a group of networks that they really contact and talk to. Okay. And that's something I want you all to do, is build your network. Don't be afraid to talk to people. right? Get out there, put yourself out there. And so that's what I'll encourage you all. But those business plans are very essential. It's a vision. It's something you have to write it on paper. It doesn't matter how great your memory is, you may forget. So it's good to always have things on paper.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, guys. So this is a very common question I get from newbies. How do you determine what to charge customers?
Oh, I did want to chime in on the network piece, and that's why I did a quick screen share.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And the thing is, especially when you're going into a new space, like I had not worked in education previously. So you never know when one thing leads to another. Where I was in Austin, Texas, because I always like to go to the conferences where people are at for your field, right? So there's a big education-ish type conference in Austin, Texas, everywhere. South by Southwest, it's just a big thing overall. And then I was on, like, it's a long story, but I was on an electric scooter because they had just come out at the time. And then I fell off one because I didn't really know what I was doing. And then I like landed on my face and it was like bleeding everywhere. So I was like, oh man, I better go get like a Band-Aid or something to stop my face from bleeding. So I went into CVS. And I was like, well, if I'm in CVS in a like place I don't live, I'm in a place where there's high networking, I'm definitely gonna network. So I started asking random people like, okay, where do I get Band-Aids and how big of a Band-Aid should I get? How much Advil should I take for this? And they usually like horrified or whatever. And then I shared my screen because I was in line to get the Band-Aids from my face and the Advil. And I met somebody who worked at Washington, D.C. And it's very important that, especially in education, get to know, like someone said, you mentioned your senators. Our senator in California, the reason I shared this photo was our senator in California is Kamala Harris. So actually in February, we all ended up meeting with her. And then people didn't realize, I didn't realize at the time, who would have thought, she'd be our new vice president. And February, I don't think at the time that was as obvious, but I was just saying how, again, you don't have to be born into anything. You can just fall off of scooters and talk to people at CVS, and then you end up meeting with Kamala Harris in her office. So I just also wanted to say it's very doable, and just keep getting out there and falling off scooters, but just don't kill yourself.
Yeah, I agree, Eddie. I want to piggyback because I like that you shared that picture. Another thing I'm really big on is really building your resume, and what I mean by that is doing things that will make you stand out. For example, I was an observer for the presidential elections in Monrovia, Liberia, of West Africa. So I got to observe how they did the presidential elections. I was meeting with different politicians. I worked under the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I also got to meet the president at the time. And as well as speaking to youth about entrepreneurship. And we were kind of working on doing some partnership at the college there on entrepreneurship, teaching business and things like that. But I was just saying, if I would have gave up or just said, no, I didn't want to do something, I would have never gotten that opportunity. But that opportunity started to lead to different things, but it came with a mindset. So when I started my business, I was upset. I was ready to give up. So I was frustrated and things like that. And my fiance, who's actually Miss Marion's daughter, because Miss Marion is my mother-in-law, she had my back. And sometimes you gotta have people that have your back, because I was to the point, I'm teaching at this place called the Soul Center. If you're familiar with Colfax and Galena in Denver, if you're from here, that place is a rough place, right? So people don't really care about what you're talking about. They don't care how excited you are. They want to survive. They want to figure out where their next meal is or how they're going to feed their family. And so me teaching business in that building, and I got that space for free. And I was supposed to get funding out of that space, but really didn't get any funding. So I had to come out of my pocket, like Ms. Nicole had mentioned. And then I started speaking out of the church. And you know how the church is. People are like, you're teaching business out of the church. I may come, I may not come, right? And so I got to a point, I'm like, I'm frustrated, right? And then an opportunity arose with me being able to go overseas, which my parents are actually both from Monrovia, Liberia. My late father, who passed away in 2017, was an ambassador of Liberia accredited to Kuwait. And so he passed away. And so the former minister reached out to us, and that connection happened, and I was able to go to Monrovia, Liberia. But I had to invest my own money. So she wasn't like, oh, I'm going to give you money because of who your father was. Just come on. No, she wanted to see if I really wanted to take that risk or take that opportunity. So I had to pay my own money, and then she gave me some money back. Like, okay, here you go. I see you're serious. But through that opportunity, I was able to come back here. I started reaching out to different politicians, professors, different leaders in the community, trying to push my business to the point I actually met Professor Lynn over 2 years ago, who I reached out to through email. And so sometimes when you email or reach out to people, you have to kind of know certain words to say. And so certain words that I used attracted or caught Professor Lynn's eye to the point he's like, let's have a meeting. And so I had a meeting with him for 30 minutes to an hour. He's like, you know what, I'm looking at your credentials. I know you want to teach and promote your business, but why don't you teach here? You know, then the opportunities arose from there. And from those opportunities, people take me serious now. I was able to be Educator of the Year as post-secondary education, done different talks throughout the community, different things like that. Awesome. And that's just from, thank you. Great. And so that's just from not giving up, but kind of, not giving up, but also having the right people in your corner as well to push you through is always a big thing. And I tell you, just continue to build your resume. If you can, stay in contact with Professor Lynn. You can stay in contact with me or the different individuals on this panel, because that's how you get opportunities. It's really reaching out to these people because like Professor Lynn, we've had many people come in who spoke to our students for free, millionaires. And they're like, I'm not going to charge you anything because I really want to reach out to that community of Community College of Denver and things like that. So when he brings in people or whoever he brings in, always make sure you connect with that person. Always make sure you connect with that person.
Great points that you just reminded me of as well is I would present anything and everything. And then eventually the California community colleges asked me to teach in Orange County. I never taught before. I was like, do I need like a teaching degree or something? Like, like what do I do? Right. And then so it was part of my previous job experience. So I kind of just put something together. It was a marketing class. It was kind of ridiculous. But it was weird enough where another community college in San Francisco were like, hey, can you do the same here? I was like, sure thing. At least now I know what I'm doing now. So, you can be in, that was a great point, how you can just get into teaching. And it was really helpful, especially since we're in the education industry, is I learned exactly what the pain points are for both faculty and students within the California community college system because I lived it. So I got a much clearer understanding. Every little nuance is really important too. And there was something else you mentioned too. But yeah, all of that networking and all that stuff is so critical that I really wanted to make sure that, you thought about that. You continue to think about that as well.
All right.
Yeah,
thank
I really
you.
appreciated everything that you guys have said. I mean, especially some of the points that really, hit a bug with me, because I, was thinking about, just the question Lynn had said about what a newbie should do. And, the first thing I would definitely say is work with people, but know your worth, and what I had to deal with when I was coming up, I was afraid to charge more. Once like when Jamal was saying, build your resume, once I was building it, I was starting to feel like, oh, well, I still have to be in the same caliber, because if I'm in the same caliber, then I won't offend anybody, or I make them feel like I'm trying to gouge them or anything like that. But once I realized that, wait a minute, you have to know your worth. And it's something that Lynn used to tell me all the time. He said, man, you've been in this business almost 20 years. You need to be doing this. You need to be doing that. And it's true, and there's some things that I had to get over, that fear of, wait a minute, I am worth, instead of paying $5 for, I'm just using an example, for a shampoo conditioner, I am worth you paying me $75, whatever it might be. But what I would tell a newbie is, yes, build your resume, work with people, but know your worth. because once you do all those three things, then you can really say, okay, yeah, I can't. I'm worth doing more than what I'm doing now. Just, if there's people out there that's charging $500 for a haircut, I think it's okay for me to say, okay, no, hey, this is going up because things go up all the time. Products, things like that. They go up all the time. So people have to realize that. Guess who does that? McDonald's, Walmart, they always go up. They always are changing. They're always doing things to better themselves or better their business, and they're not ashamed to say it. And you know what? And another thing I would tell newbies is this. Even when people are not in your corner, even when people say you cannot do it, even when people say that you're not going to be successful, you still have to have that entrepreneur spirit to say, you know what? I don't care what they say. This is my God-given talent, my God-given purpose, and I'm going to walk in that, regardless of what anybody else is saying, regardless if I have cheerleaders right there next to me or if I don't, what I had to do. I could have still stayed where I was at, but I had to walk by faith and walk in that entrepreneur spirit and say, you know what, I am going to get my own salon because that is one of my God-given purposes. So I can build up what I need to do. And that's for anybody. As Jamal was saying, he didn't stay in the same situation. As Eddie was saying, he didn't stay in the situation. And Miss what's your name again, ma'am?
Marion.
Marion. I'm sorry. Thank you, Miss Marion. As Marion was saying, she did what she had to do. All the entrepreneurs on here had to do what you have to do. And that's what I'm telling with you, Melissa. Whether people are in your corner or not, yes, it is good to have people in your corner. Absolutely. But if they're not, it's okay too, because you still have to take that risk and you still have to go forth and say, you know what, I can do this in spite of it. I can know my worth, work with people, and continue to go down this entrepreneurial spirit. It's something that we all have to do. And it's scary, it's riskful, but it's worth it because you can stand on your 2 feet. I believe that an entrepreneur is like a New Yorker. You can do anything, anywhere. You know what I'm saying? You can do anything, anywhere. So that's what I would say.
Okay.
What was that?
I didn't hear.
What was that?
I know I said that I believe entrepreneurs are like New Yorkers. If you can survive in New York, you can survive anywhere. That's how entrepreneurs are. If you can be an entrepreneur, you can stand on your 2 feet. And that's the best thing I can say. Follow the purpose that God put in your heart to follow. You walk in that and you continue to put him first, and everything will flow. Everything will ride itself out.
I did want to comment on that for a couple of reasons. One, and just there are a lot of haters out there. It's pretty crazy how many haters there are out there. So yeah, you gotta just do your thing in spite of all that. Even people you thought should support you. It's like kind of discouraging how it's kind of discouraging how they don't. And the New Yorker thing is so true. So my first job was in New York, but I grew up in Texas, which is a really, really different place. And then I was shocked to see like people in New York are really, really tough. Like you don't mess with the people in New York. Like they're really rough on you from like every single person in New York. Like if you're like, for example, like in Texas at CVS, spent a lot of time at CVS. In like CVS, if you don't have it together, they'll just like wait on you or whatever. Like, no one says hurry up, right? In New York, if you're not like ready to check out and go, they're like, get to the back of the line, like and stuff like that. It's like people will give you a hard time or take advantage of you if you don't step it up like that in New York. So I actually thought it was good preparation. So Nicole, you bring up a great point. Yeah, the New Yorker thing. I also recommend to not live there long term because it's really hard to live that way forever.
Yeah, I wanted to say, can I add something? This is Jamal. Yeah, the thing, I like that. I like what Nicole said. She's spot on. Eddie, everyone's spot on. The big thing is, I would say, go to Africa, and then we can talk about New York a little more. So you go to, then we could talk. Yeah, New York, I was born on the East Coast as well. I was born in D.C., but I was raised in Denver. But I went to Africa, went to Monrovia, Liberia, like I mentioned before, and for us, we have no excuse, truthfully. Africa's a nice place. It's beautiful. I hope you all get a chance to go there one day. But you got to look at how blessed we are as people, as a country, even though we're going through this situation. And it's funny that there's a lot of African countries and other countries not really going through COVID the way we're going through COVID. So that means we need to learn something as well. But that's a whole nother topic, another day. When I was in Liberia, they don't get scholarships like how we get scholarships. All right.
Right.
They don't get the refund, a nice little refund, $5,000, $2,000, whatever. They don't get that. And so how they get it, they call it scholarship, but it's like somebody like Eddie or Miss Marion or Nicole or Miss Kay paying for their schooling. That's how they get a scholarship. That's like you sponsoring them. And so when I was speaking at the school called Diversified, a lot of those students didn't have any funding. Some were scared. During elections, there's a hard time in different countries, and during the election time, they didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't know what the new leadership was going to do or how they were going to move forward. And so a lot of students weren't going to school because they just couldn't afford it. So you have students 6 years old or maybe a little younger working with their parents because they need to make money to survive. And so I bring that up because my parents are from that country, right? But they came here educated. Both of them were very educated. They didn't make any excuses, right? And then you look at those students, they're so smart. They have so little, some of them, but they don't use that as an excuse. And I want us to remember that we got to change our mindsets because the thing is, we're spoiled. I'm sorry. I don't care what anybody says. We're spoiled because we don't have to deal with that issue. Some of us, right? We all struggle in different ways, and we all have different obstacles that we face. But, I mean, at the end of the day, there's no excuse not to get your education, right? And those students work hard. They become entrepreneurs. They become doctors. Most of them get into politics, things like that. But they start with so little. And I was able to see the school, just me going to that school, brighten up their day. And that probably changed their lives forever. That may be something they remember the day I'm not even on this earth anymore. And that's something you want to do, is make those everlasting changes in people's lives, that you 50, 60 years old, someone comes up to you like, I remember I was in your class, or I remember you talking to me in this panel and you changed my life. You know what I mean? That's what I take pride in, is really changing lives, teaching the next generation to lead on, because at the end of the day, I'm sorry what you believe, we're not all going to live forever. We all have an expiration date. I'm sorry, unless Eddie or Lynn figure out a robot to keep us alive. But at the end of the day, we all have an expiration date. But the goal is to make sure we plant enough seeds in the lives of others to continue on that work, even when we're gone. Because at the end of the day, what work you leave will be remembered forever or outlive you. And so that's my goal, to have work that outlives me, that to this day, in the next 40, 60 years, people remember who I was and the work I did, and they continue on that.
Excellent. I think actually that's kind of, I want to give enough time for Q&A with the students. So you gave pretty much your send off, Jamal. That was wonderful. I would like the rest of you wonderful entrepreneurs to also kind of give your anecdotal definition of success, and probably what drove you to be an entrepreneur as well, because, not everybody is cut for it, but those that do choose to go that path, they're looking for more, or they're looking to give more. So can y'all all kind of define what you consider being successful entrepreneur?
I mean, is it bad to say that peer pressure? I don't know if that's or bad. I think they typically, like a psychologist would say, it's bad. But I think the other part makes more sense for me too, is that I realized I worked really hard in corporate America for like a very small amount of vacation. I would spend like 90% of the year like hating my job, and all my coworkers hated their job too. That's what we would talk about every time we would go out.
It's like, here you go.
And then one of our,
1, 2, 3.
I mentioned one of the colleagues I said who sold his company to Twitter, and then that inspired the rest of the group, because we're like, wait a second, he's just a normal dude. Like, if he's gonna do it, why can't we do it? He's not smarter than the rest of us or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong with him, but it was like, wait a second, why are we suffering 90% of our lives when he can just do stuff like that? So right after that happened, like all the people we worked with at the time just like quit. And they started like doing their own thing. And it comes with a greater risk and greater sacrifice, but at least we know that, we're like at least in control of what we really want to do. And if we like bomb, then at least we gave it a shot, right? Because then, like right now, I still see my coworkers who they take like 1 day trips to like Machu Picchu in South America. Like, yeah, like went there on vacation once, but like they would go down there, they would take a picture of the thing, and they would head right back to America. I was like, why would you do this? Like, oh, I don't have any vacation time. I was like, I just can't. I would rather just take a shot and not do that for my rest of my life, than to just not do it ever. So I think that's an important reasoning behind it.
Well, I would say that's a good point. I like that, Eddie. It all makes sense too, because even before I got to this point to open up a boutique shop, when I was working at the finance center, basically I started off with doing pantyhose, all different colored types of pantyhose. And I could see I was making almost double my check um, on site because women wore pantyhose. And so I was in the mail room and I would send their orders through the envelopes as well. And so that kind of started then, because like, man, well, I wonder how this could really succeed after, I'm getting tired of the job per se, but of course you stayed on the job because you love going and you love making money. Um, but um, but just being uh, doing the best that you can and keeping your goals in mind and believing in yourself that you can do it, to where I am right now, and be willing to own up to it. Yes, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of drive, but it's what you really want to do. And without that, I think you'd be bored. I mean, besides just going to work every day, wouldn't you want to do something different on your own besides just being stuck at the job? And then when you retire from your job, you have nothing to do. So let your jobs also teach you um, what you want to do, what you want to include in your business. It's like customer service, calling people. Well, for me, calling people and texting people. Now with this COVID, is that actually have put me on lockdown. I still have my store, but I'm not open right now. So of course, again, about the business plan, that's going to be a whole different change when I return back. you know? So just really believe in what you're doing and don't let anybody else talk you out of it, because you know what your gut is telling you.
Yeah, wouldn't it also suck really bad if you spent like 30 years living for a weekend and saving all that money, you die of COVID, and like before you even get to enjoy that? To me, that would be
Yeah,
really depressing. Yeah, outside of COVID, I think that's very possible in so many random ways too. So that's why I mean, it's a good point. I really wish people do not like work just to live after 67 and a half or whatever that age is now, where you get the whatever from the gov.
yes.
Yeah, I agree. If I can go really quick, I just wanted to add this on. So, Professor Lynn and I use them a lot because we do a lot of partnerships together. We do a lot of business partnerships and outreach. We're both from Montbello, so this is a neighborhood here in Denver. I'm not sure if all your students are from Denver, but it's called Montbello. It's called the Bellows, predominantly Black and Latino or Latinx community. We grew up there, and so what I find successful is really my community, and not just getting to a certain status and just saying, oh, whatever, but being able to go back, because I once was that kid, the same kid that's having those issues. I was one of those kids. And so I always want to be able to give back to my community. And so, not to share too much, but Professor Lynn and I do have that opportunity to go back to our community and really teach those students about business, about STEM, and things like that. And so that's what I find passionate is really going back to my community and helping those kids because I had somebody help me get to the position I was, so it's only right for me to do the same thing. Go ahead, Miss Marion.
Thank you. So, successful entrepreneurship, that is huge because it's not about money. It's not about how much money you make, and it's not about that those frivolous things, but it's about being free, being able to do those things and help those people that you have helped, and different things of that nature. The one thing that I learned about big thing I learned about business is not to create a job for yourself. That's just starting my business. I created a job, and so I was like, I do not want to work for myself, like, and really have to work, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm trying to put that in a real good, but I created a business, a company, somebody who, I mean, those that are actually working for me, and I think that right there has really been um, that success part because I have employees, people that work for me that can do what I do. I started out because I was gifted to do what I did, and sometimes your giftings can get you in trouble. Because I'm gifted to do these programs and people like pay money because that's what they want. They want to see these programs and they want to see this happen. But it created a job for me. And if I wanted a job, I could have just stayed where I was. I could have just kept doing what I'm doing, stayed at the mortuary, kept doing what I was doing, you know, kept working. I worked for FedEx. I could have kept doing that, whatever. But for me to be able to branch out and do my own successful entrepreneurship means that I'm able to now walk away and have people that are working for me that can do what I do. I can duplicate me in somebody else. And that to me is success. Is success. And so I'm duplicating me and I'm showing, okay, this is how you do this. This is what you do. But in regards to that, I still have some NDAs and some contracts that protect me. It's like now I'm definitely going to protect myself. I'm going to have those contracts in place because you can't trust everybody that comes through the door that says, hey, I want to work for you. And some people want to work for you just long enough to take your business. I am a witness. And so definitely you want to make sure that you have some protection in place and different things of that nature. But you also want to make sure that that you're not afraid to share enough of yourself so that things can get done. Because like I said, if you are working all the time, I was working when I started about 22 hours a day. That's how much I was working. And I slept a couple hours and I would wake right back up and I'm back on the computer, I'm going. And that was just way too exhausting. But for me to be able to duplicate myself in some other people to make sure that the business runs at the level that I want it to run at the level of excellence, because everything has to be at a certain standard. And so these are the things that I feel like successful entrepreneurship is actually being able to live your dream, and not have to work your dream to live it. Because I mean, just like Eddie was saying, he was like, when you're working in the corporate, you're working 16, 18 hours a day, and then you like have a couple weeks off. It's like, that just sucks, so why be an entrepreneur and do the same thing? You have to duplicate yourself, and you have to make sure you have people in place, because people are your biggest, that's your biggest asset. Honestly, it's other people, it's other things of that nature. But like I said, you're sitting there and you're doing the whole everything yourself, then you've created a job. And so to be an entrepreneur, it's a different mindset because you have to be able to pass on you in order to continue and grow and become bigger. Because if you're not growing, then again, you've created a job. So yeah. So let's that entrepreneurship mindset is really different from just creating a new job. So that's it.
I want to add one more thing.
Jamal,
Also,
you had too many things,
I
man.
know,
Come
man. You
on,
know,
we
you got
got
me started. You know, I'm passionate about
15
this. So
minutes.
once you get me, all right, I'll be quiet. All right, go ahead.
All right. Other who didn't get a chance to speak, please? Kay, did you define your entrepreneurial success?
Yes, I did. I did speak.
Nicole. I think Nicole was the only one.
Oh, okay. And she had an appointment, y'all. All right, go ahead, Jamal. My bad. I thought I just wanted to make sure everybody got a chance to speak, but
How about
this
the
is
lady
cute.
that had the food company? Michelle.
Michelle is one of the students, so let's segue into that. Students, do you have any questions? This is Q&A time before we get off of this wonderful session.
First off, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I've gotten a lot out of this. My question for you guys is, can you talk a little bit about your strategies for emotional resilience? Failure is a part of being an entrepreneur. So what are your guys' strategies to remain resilient when you face that no from people?
Oh, I wanted to actually share my time about you guys ever watch Fear Factor as okay. So when I graduated from business school, I thought it'd be more fun to be a Fear Factor contestant than go back to my old like internship job. But along the way, I ate 20 live bees and got dropped off helicopters. So I made like kind of a life slogan after that to say fear is not a factor for everything. So subsequently, when it came time to all those many discouraging situations, by the way, I would just go, oh, fear's not a factor. And that was it. Just go back to that show. So that's just like my life slogan on that. But because it happens so much and that was an experience I take with me, that's just become the way I address that problem because it comes up so much.
And dealing with this pandemic has really caused a lot of that fear and those emotional things that go on. But the one thing that I want to kind of point out is that when you are emotional intelligence is really important, and especially when you're dealing with employees, you kind of got to connect with them on an emotional level, so that you can then help them to grow beyond where where they need to be, and into where they need to be. But the emotional piece, I kind of take the emotions out out of making decisions. And I think that's the big thing. Is like when you're making a decision, you have to understand that your decisions is going to create a season. And so every decision that you make, such as if you hire a certain employee, it'll create something that will live on for a little while, even if they're gone, even if you fired them or whatever, you still, it creates something. And so you have to take the emotion out of your decisions in order for you to move forward, because emotions will fool you every time. So they will fool you. Just like he was talking about the fear. The fear is an emotion that will fool you because you'll make bad decisions because I'm scared. And scared money doesn't make money. So you have to make sure that, you have to be able to say, okay, wait a minute, I'm willing to put this money on this to make it happen. And so that's the risk factor. So all of these things kind of go together, and you have to make sure that, that's why I say that emotional piece, you kind of gotta, you take it into consideration, but you don't base your decisions off of emotion, because your emotions change. So you might feel okay today, but if you take enough drugs tomorrow, you'll feel a different way. And so I'm just joking, but but, but I'm just saying. So your emotions will shift, and so you have to base it off of what you know to be true, and what you know that your possibilities also, but not never emotions.
I think Marion brought up a great point too, because a lot of people don't make the rational choices because like they're scared. That's kind of why I mentioned that. And I forgot to mention that too, is that why did I even bring up fear factor in the first place? Is because we realized it was just a mental show, right? Like if you think of eating bees, it's like you get in your head and you think, oh, I'm gonna die or whatever, right? But when you're done, it's like literally it's like eating popcorn covered with honey. And you're like, wow, I was about to make a really dumb emotional decision when this really wasn't that hard, right? So then when you start thinking about like, oh, should I or should not I not make this choice? Again, it was just mental. So all that stuff is like the things you can't control is what, know what you can control, and the part where it's the emotional part in your head, you can control that. So make sure you can control that and also make the most rational choice you can. There's a whole thing about if you guys play cards, like there's all these like they do all these like statistics and numbers about how you play certain hands in poker, and a lot of people make the emotional decision and they lose money as a result. So Nicole, like that's why Mary was saying, oh yeah, like scared money is like bad money, because like that's what happens a lot when like money's on the line. People make emotional bad choices instead of thinking rationally.
And then what I wanted to say was, being a retail store is totally different for me, because I did let fear, and that sometimes fear do get into you. That's just being real, because I was hesitant about opening the store back because I didn't know what COVID had to offer. Well, I did know what COVID had to offer because I'm actually a survivor, um, God's survivor's child through COVID, which I actually had March 28th through April 28th. And I was in the hospital for the whole time. But I'm cured, and through God, I give all glory to God for all that, because it could have really went another way. Um, but my focus was saying that now that I'm healed, and during the time that I thought about going back to the shop, I wasn't feeling comfortable. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. What about this? What about that? But as I allowed myself with more time, I'm okay, but I'm just not going to do it until after the new year, until things might be able to calm down a little bit better then, and to be able to approach it differently. Not where it was before. Everybody was in and out the shop. It was great. People probably had COVID then and didn't even know it, on a good day. But um, that's the part that I feared. If you're talking about the fear, but you pray through that. You pray through that because you know what your heart wants. God didn't tell you to close the door. He gave you the point for you to open the door. You just need to give yourself a little time to get over that, but keep pushing forward. No matter what, keep pushing forward, because this is what you want to do.
Oh, that was profound. And for you guys, probably recognize the similarity in the last name. This is my beloved mother. She is a COVID survivor. It was a scary time because it was literally 2 days before my birthday when she got diagnosed. And I'm very proud of her resilience. So when you talk about resilience, Chris, for her to still have the determination and commitment to do her dream, I've known throughout, obviously, most of my childhood to adulthood, how passionate she has been about her business of intimate apparel. And so It's one of those things that I think really inspired me as an entrepreneur myself. That you have to have that grit, you have to have that fortitude, and you have to have that vision. You know that going into business for yourself is a journey. I think it's an adventure. I really kind of enjoy it personally from the fact that it continues to challenge me. Similar to when I was in the IT career, um, how I was always having to learn new things. But with business, it's everything. You know, it controls so many different fabrics of society. As Jamal was mentioning, just the overlay of even dealing with politics and government and things like that. I love how business interweaves into all of that, because it's not necessarily always about profit making. For me, as a social entrepreneur, it's about impact. I'm always looking at the return on impact, not the return on investment per se. So when you have, the theme I heard so much from these entrepreneurs is basically follow your heart, follow your gut, and believe enough in it that it will, whatever you come up with, and it may change, and it does change, you know, different seasons of the economy, different seasons of your life. When I became a dad, it certainly changed. I pretty much shut down my business once I started having kids, and I didn't really start getting back in the game until they were like 2 or 3 years old. I just didn't feel comfortable doing anything but focusing on my kids. So I think even you have to think about that as well, guys, that different seasons of your life may also make you make adjustments. That's the reason why um, the creator of Star Wars sold Star Wars. It was because he wanted to raise his daughter, and wanted to focus on that. Even though he still had many stories inside of him, he felt the priority in this season of his life was to pour into his wife and kid. So doesn't matter how big your company becomes or how small, they're all mighty in their own way because it's yours.
Yes.
And you get to define the rules. That's what I love about entrepreneurship. I mean, Eddie had so many great anecdotal stories about his antics and adventures, because, hey, he wanted to write his own rules. And sometimes, well, I wouldn't say sometimes, most times entrepreneurship goes against conventional rules. It goes against the status quo. And so once you understand that, and once you understand you're going to get a lot more no's than yeses, especially initially, because no one else believes it should work or that won't work or how is that going to even work? Because it's totally different than how people are doing it right now. That's why people don't think it will work. You have to prove them wrong. Yeah, but that's what entrepreneurship does, I think. It just proves, and artistry too. Artists to me are like entrepreneurs in that way. They just prove that whatever the common convention is wrong. You know, that someone can sell, you know, a toilet in Home Depot for $100, but if I say I'm an artist and I put a toilet on a piece of plywood and paint it purple and sell it for $10,000 and call it art, what's the difference?
Right.
You know, the difference is that person believed that he could sell it for 10 grand by just making a few modifications to it. And that's what entrepreneurs really, to me, do. They take the seen and the unseen, and they make it beautiful. They make it in their own style and way, and they get other people, whether it's multiple people or just a handful to believe in it as well. So with that, I thank you so much, Kay Wilson of Kay's Lingerie Boutique, Mary Boston of Creative Solutions, Eddie Lynn of Nexus Edge, Jamal Bowen of Empowering Community Entrepreneurs, and of course, Nicole Wilson of Sheer Fantasy Hair Salon for our very first virtual entrepreneur panel. Thank you, students. You guys have been wonderful. Audience, thank you for coming and just engaging. Thank you.
Thank you all.